Big news out of the state of Washington yesterday as that state banned so-called assault weapons and semi-automatic rifles, AR-15s, et cetera, et cetera. How can they do that? Can they do that? Is it constitutional? And what good will it do anyway? And did we finally get the long-awaited definition of what an assault weapon is anyway? Because I'm pretty sure every gun can be used to assault another individual. Well, to give us the answers to all those things and more, it's Luis Valdes. He's the national spokesman and Florida State Director for Gun Owners of America. I guess we'll start with this. Can they even do this, or is there already a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of this, what with the Second Amendment and everything?
There are already lawsuits that have been filed on multiple fronts, and we are eagerly waiting to see the end result of this. But as you said, with the post-Bruin decision from the United States Supreme Court, I don't think they could do this. The Supreme Court said that every gun law on the books must meet three criteria: text, history, and tradition. Does it meet a law that would have been legal in 1791? And the answer is no. This would not be legal. This law is clearly an assault and an affront to millions of law-abiding Americans, to hundreds of thousands of law-abiding gun owners in Washington state. And personally, it's an affront to me as a law-abiding citizen. I think what the state of Washington has done is clearly an infringement. And as the Second Amendment clearly states, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
They use the term we'll start with semi-automatic rifles. This is interesting. First of all, what's the rationale behind limiting semi-automatic rifles versus semi-automatic handguns? A huge number of handguns are semi-automatic. Again, I'm not trying to give them any ideas, but did they say, well, semi-automatic handguns, we'll let those go, but the rifles, that's the problem. It's just a question of power?
It's not a question of anything. It's just them trying to diminish our rights to keep and bear arms.
Yeah. Something tells me they just don't like the sound of semi-automatic rifle, because I don't think they really understand what semi-automatic means.
They don't. And remember, back before rifles became the big hot ticket item for them to attack, going back into the 1980s, it was handguns.
Yes,
remember? They were going after semi-automatic handguns. You even had a 9mm pistol put on the cover of Times Magazine. It was, oh my God, the big, scary 15-round capacity 9mm pistols were the thing back in the 80s, and now they're going after rifles. In the end, they're trying to do anything and everything to go after firearms and make it harder for law-abiding people to own. And as a former law enforcement officer, I'm going to say this. If these tools, and that's what they are, they're tools, if they had no benefit for individual protection, then every cop, every public official that is tasked with guarding our elected officials, they shouldn't have AR-15s. They shouldn't have 9mm pistols with 15 to 17 round capacity magazines. They should be out there guarding our elected officials with muzzle-loading flintlock muskets that are one round and one round only. Because remember, that's what all the gun grabbers say, is that, the Second Amendment was written when muzzleloaders were the key tool.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Then those that want to grab our guns, be protected by that.
Governor Inslee of Washington, he had a signing ceremony, and I'm pretty sure everybody had to pass through a metal detector before they got in there, and if they chose to go around the metal detector, they were shot down by a police officer using a semi-automatic weapon. I just want to make note of that. During the signing ceremony, he said, "These weapons of war, assault weapons, have no reason other than mass murder. The only purpose is to kill humans as rapidly as possible in large numbers." How do you respond to that, sir?
Governor Inslee clearly doesn't understand history, because semi-automatic firearms actually were invented prior to them being military arms as sporting arms. Back in the good old days, before color was invented, when St. John Moses Browning descended from the mountain and gave us such firearms, like the 1911 pistol and such, the common military service arm was the bolt-action rifle, which is now the quintessential deer hunting rifle. But back then, it was the other way around. It was the semi-automatic that was the quintessential hunting rifle, and it was the bolt-action that was the military arm. So the idea that semi-automatic firearms in of themselves are weapons of war is historically laughable because it's been proven false. But again, it doesn't matter if it's a sporting arm, if it's a military arm, if it's something for target, if it's something for collecting. The Second Amendment is clear. You and I have the right to keep and bear arms, and it doesn't matter what classification of firearm it is. You know, I collect firearms from black powder muzzle loading to modern NFAI arms, and guess what? I use them for everything. I use them for hunting. I use them for self-defense. I use them for sport.
Yeah. My wife happens to be a big fan of the AR-15. She has told me specifically, as a woman, an AR-15 is her weapon of choice for self-defense. And I'm told that that's not uncommon. Can you explain to me how the AR, because I'm told it's a weapon of war and the only reason that anyone would have it is to kill as many people as possible. You don't shoot a deer with an AR-15, that's what they always say. First of all, that's not true, I believe, number one. But also, number two, why is this such a great instrument for self-defense, the AR-15?
The AR-15 is low in recoil, has a good magazine capacity, light in weight. My wife, she's 5'2", 120 pounds, soaking wet. Guess what? She handles an AR-15 without a problem. If she listened to Joe Biden's advice of get a shotgun is heavy, cumbersome, high in recoil, low in capacity. It is far easier for my wife to handle an AR-15 and for people of smaller stature to handle an AR-15 than a shotgun or even a handgun in most cases. And as for an AR-15 not being viable for hunting, let's see, one of America's oldest firearms companies, Remington Arms, they manufactured and sold AR-15 specifically as hunting platforms for over a decade now, and they were one of their biggest sellers before they went into bankruptcy.
There's another aspect. Listen, we've hit this on various levels. Our rights, obviously, it's fundamental. It's in the Constitution. That should end the conversation. Also, the lies that are told about these guns, these firearms. What about just the practical nature of this? First of all, by announcing this ban, what they're going to do is drive off the sale of these guns in the state before the law goes into action. But also, if one state decides to ban these weapons for sale, I mean, we travel from state to state. You can drive across state borders. Will this have any actual practical impact on the state of Washington?
Of course not, because New York, California, for instance, they've had these laws on the books for decades. And last I checked, it hasn't stopped crime. Criminals break the law. You know, murder has been illegal since Hammurabi wrote it on a stone tablet, and since Moses came down from the mountain and said, "Thou shalt not commit murder." And last I checked, criminals still are criminals and they break the law and they commit murder.
Yeah.
These laws don't do anything.
We're really just dancing around the issue here with guns, though, aren't we, sir? I mean, ultimately, you keep hearing the euphemism, we should do what Australia did. Liberals are always saying that we should do what Australia did, and nobody actually follows up and saying, let's be clear on what Australia did. Australia banned the ownership of almost every gun in that country, and then they went door to door and collected the guns. That really is what they want to do. Shouldn't we just get all of this other noise out of the way and just have that final debate?
You know, they play by the political strategy of incrementalism.
Yes.
They keep saying, no, we're only going to do this, just this little piece. And then when it doesn't work, they keep going and they keep going and
right.
they keep going. And again, using California as a fantastic example of that. Back in the 80s, California, they instituted their first assault weapons ban. That didn't work. Then they went more. They went more. And they went more to where basically now you could only own, you know, a single shot shotgun or a bolt action rifle or a revolver for the most part. Yes, you could own more, but their laws are so draconian and so despotic that it makes it very hard for the law-abiding to legally own a firearm there that the rest of Americans can legally own. And they are still saying, with all of their shootings, with all of their crime, with their rising crime rate, and the fact that they have a revolving door policy on hardened criminals, they keep saying, no, it's not the criminals, it's not our lack of prosecuting criminals, it's the firearms, it's an inanimate object. Let's just outright ban them, because they know that ultimately their gun control doesn't work. And what they want is they want control. They want the people to be reliant on the government for their protection.
That's ultimately what it is. And that's the debate eventually, hopefully, we can actually have in this country, because we will win. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.